The other day I was flipping through channels on the TV when I came to one of those competitive spelling bees. I stopped to watch for a minute but got really discouraged. Despite the fact that I was pretty familiar with most of the words, I couldn't spell them out loud correctly. I finally had to resort to writing them out on paper just to prove to myself that I'm not a terrible speller. Some people just have the ability to spontaneously spell words aloud, while others are lost without pencil and paper. For those of you lost by all the formulas, variables, and algebra that comes along with kinematics problems, there's another way. Kinematics can be represented graphically. This is a skill that everyone needs to master, but hopefully the visual learners in the group will gain a much greater understanding of kinematics once they have a way to actually see what's going on. I'm sure you've all seen the basic XY graphs from algebra class. Just as a refresher, this is what I'm talking about. You've got your horizontal x-axis and vertical y-axis laid out on a grid. You can assign almost any variable to x and y. For example, as you walk, you travel a certain number of meters in a certain number of seconds. So you can call x seconds and y meters. On the y meters axis, each grid line is equal to 1 meter. On the x seconds axis, each grid line is equal to 1 second. All you need to do is measure how many meters you can walk in a second and plot those values. If you can walk 1 meter every second, after 1 second you walked 1 meter. So simply look on the map where 1 second and 1 meter lines cross. After 2 seconds you walked 2 meters, so plot that point, and so on. Once you've plotted several points, you can draw a line connecting your points. This technique for visualizing kinematics can be applied to displacement, velocity, and acceleration. All you have to do is change the variables on the x and y axes to match the information you have. It's very likely that you'll be asked to set up a graph given only graph paper and a pencil. There are a few things you need to remember to include. First, draw the x and y axes. Always put little arrows on the ends of the lines. Believe it or not, you can lose points for not including those arrows. Then assign your variables to the x and y axes. Lastly, number your axes, starting with 0 at the point where the x and y axes cross, called the origin, and counting out in all 4 directions. Remember, kinematics involves vector quantities, so you need the negative values. On the graph, objects that slow down or change direction can have negative values. Let's briefly review. Motion can be studied algebraically or graphically. The common XY graph is used to plot variables like position, displacement, velocity, and acceleration. Always remember that when setting up your graph, you need to include arrows on the axes, assign variables, and fill in the numbers in both the positive and negative directions.